I remember the exact second the room decided I didn't belong. Not because anyone raised their voice, not because someone pointed a finger. It was quieter than that, smoother. The kind of dismissal that wears a smile and pretends it's polite. "We're actually full for the evening," the host said, already turning his body away from me like the conversation had ended before it ever began. I stood there for half a beat too long, holding my phone with the reservation confirmation still glowing on the screen. The light felt embarrassing, like it was exposing something private. Around me the room kept moving, glasses clinked, laughter floated, a couple brushed past me without even looking. Life continued. I was the only thing that had paused, and in that pause I felt it, that familiar tightening in my chest, the one I'd felt before, years ago, back when people decided who I was before I ever opened my mouth. I wasn't dressed poorly. That's the funny part. I just wasn't dressed loud. No logos screaming for attention, no flash begging for validation. Just clean lines, simple shoes, a watch I wore because I liked it, not because it needed to be seen. Apparently that wasn't enough. The host glanced back at me, irritation flickering across his face like I'd missed a social cue. "You can try somewhere else down the street," he added, voice soft, helpful, dismissive. Somewhere else. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because part of me recognized the script. I'd heard it in different versions my whole life. Different cities, different rooms, same message. "You're not one of us." I took a breath. Slow, controlled. The kind you learn when reacting gets you nowhere. "I have a reservation," I said, keeping my voice even. 7:45, under my name. He didn't even look at the screen when I held my phone up. Didn't need to. He'd already decided. "I'm sorry," he said again. "There must be a mistake." Mistake. That word does a lot of work for people who don't want to own their choices. I stepped slightly to the side, letting another couple pass. They were greeted warmly, names, remembered coats taken, smiles exchanged. I watched how easily the door opened for them, how natural it looked. Then I realized something that stung more than the dismissal itself. No one was embarrassed. Not him, not the staff, not the people watching. Because in their minds, this wasn't a scene. It was routine. That's when it stopped being about dinner. I stayed, not out of stubbornness, not to make a point. I stayed because I wanted to understand something. I leaned against the wall out of the way like I was supposed to disappear, and I watched. I watched how the host laughed with certain guests and flattened his voice with others. I watched how confidence changed depending on who stood in front of him. I watched how power behaves when it thinks it's invisible. A woman near the bar noticed me watching and quickly looked away like eye contact might involve her. A man glanced at my shoes, then my jacket, then back to his drink. Calculations happening in real time. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, that old instinct to prove myself, to correct the narrative before it calcified. But I didn't, because here's the truth, they never teach you. When you rush to explain who you are, you let them control the terms. So I stayed quiet. A manager eventually appeared. Taller, sharper suit, smile practiced to perfection. "There seems to be some confusion," he said, not asking a question. I nodded. That's what I was told. He glanced at the host, then back at me, eyes scanning not my face but my usefulness. "And you are?" I gave him my name. It didn't land, not yet. He tilted his head slightly. "We do have standards here," he said carefully. "Our guests expect a certain atmosphere." Ah, there it was. I smiled. Not wide, just enough. "I get it," I said. "I really do." That surprised him. It interrupted the rhythm he was used to. He hesitated, then nodded like we'd reached an understanding. "Thank you for being reasonable," he said. Reasonable. Another word people use when they expect you to shrink. I could have corrected him right then. Could have said the things that would have flipped the script in seconds. But I didn't come there to win an argument. I came there to see the truth. So I stepped outside. The air hit me different, cooler, honest. No velvet ropes pretending to be virtue. I stood on the sidewalk, city noise washing over me. And for the first time that night I laughed. Quietly. To myself. Because here's what they didn't know. I've sat across from people who could end industries with a sentence. I've signed deals that changed entire neighborhoods. I've been underestimated my whole life, and I learned early that silence can be a weapon. I pulled my phone out, not in a dramatic way. No pacing, no theatrics, just one call. Not to threaten, not to expose, to move forward. Inside the room kept buzzing. They thought it was over. It wasn't. 20 minutes later, the tone changed. I felt it before I saw it, the way attention suddenly sharpens like animals sensing movement in tall grass. The manager stepped outside this time, smile tighter, posture straighter. "Sir," he said, clearing his throat, "there's been an update." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yes," he said. "It appears there was in fact a reservation under your name. Interesting how mistakes find clarity when stakes change." He gestured toward the door. "If you'd like to come in." I looked past him, through the glass, at the same room that had erased me half an hour earlier, and for the first time that night I felt nothing. "No," I said. The word surprised him more than any reveal ever could. "I'm good," I added. "I think I've seen enough." His smile faltered. "Sir, please." I shook my head. "You didn't want me when you thought I was irrelevant. I don't need you now that you're unsure." That's when it clicked for him. Not who I was, but what he'd done. Because respect that arrives late isn't respect. It's fear. I leaned in just slightly, not aggressive, not kind. "You didn't treat me poorly because you didn't know me," I said quietly. "You treated me poorly because you thought it wouldn't matter." He didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I walked away, my footsteps steady, blending back into the city like I always do. No applause, no crowd, no victory speech, just clarity. Here's the thing no one tells you about moments like that. They don't feel triumphant. They feel clean, like something toxic finally left your system. I didn't change that night. They did. And that's the difference. Because power isn't about proving who you are to people who already decided who you're not. It's about knowing when to walk away unchanged and letting the silence teach the lesson. So I'll ask you this. Do you think people respect money, or do they only respect the fear of being wrong about you?